Just gonna do a little bit of a mic check here, make sure everything is working. We should be, at least until I get a better microphone. This is as good as we're gonna sound. So, here we are at Imola, which is apparently the big one when it comes to GoFAST racing. So hopefully we will see some good racing tonight. Expecting almost 40 in participation tonight, which would be an absolutely huge number. But we already have some rolling out of the pit lane. First off is going to be the number 5 of Autry. As we get this practice session kicked off, the first and only of our practice sessions before our 20-minute split quali and a 45-minute one-stop race. I know there are a few of you who are going to be newer to the streams, and thank you for those of you it is going to be your first time tuning in. Here at Imola, it is a very good time, very interesting track, a fan favorite for the majority of the field, definitely a favorite for GFR. They do consider this the Augusta of the GoFAST racing season, in reference to the Masters Golf Tournament. Especially down into here, Acqua Minerale. Before you come back up the hill into, I believe, Variante Alta. I'll have to double check my corner names here. And then we fly down the hill full speed towards the double left-handers of Ravazza. Past 1, past 2, back onto the main straight. As it is a double right-hand kinked straight with Variante Bassa as you come across the line. And we'll go ahead and ride on board with Autry coming into Tamburello now. A very high-speed chicane, kind of like a Scari, but you get more time to slow down into it, and it's a little bit bigger. And then you come out of Tamburello flying towards Variante Villeneuve. A short succession of 2 kinks with some serrated curbing on the outside that you can use before the hairpin of Tosa. Definitely going to be one of the trickier spots on the track tonight. A good overtaking opportunity if you can line up the line, force the car ahead onto the outside less fast line, but it's also a fight for traction coming out. As they come through Piratella, will also be a move or an opportunity to open up a move, especially into Acqua Minerale. If you can catch the car ahead of you out just a little bit into Piratella, run them off the line, and then have that nose up the inside, by the time you get to Acqua Minerale, you can have a move on here. We do have the McLaren of your mom as we come through Variante Alta, clattering over the curves, using a lot more of them than we see Autry here. And Autry will pull to the side and allow the McLaren of your mom to pull ahead. And looks to be getting a fast lap in here. Don't know if this is an out lap for the McLaren. But we will see as your mom comes out of Ravazza. What is the time going to be if it is a valid lap? Running out to the outside to carry a little bit more speed through the right-handers. And very narrow on the start-finish line. Not a lap for your mom yet. I think it may have actually gone invalid at Piratella if it was. And a little bit too much of the sleeping policeman through the middle of Tamburello there. Peach in the Mustang Moving up in the championship fight, currently sitting P3 just behind Platypus. Ormiston still leading this championship, but a lot to answer for tonight, as it has not been a very good season since round 3. Ormiston, if you remember, did bring home the victory in rounds 1, 2, and 3, yet to bring home a victory, and I believe even a podium since. So Ormiston with a lot of ground to cover. If Ormiston does not get a move on, that championship fight is going to close up very, very quickly. Trixit in the Ferrari 296 in a home race for the Prancing Horse, looking to bring home a victory for the boys in the factory and have those flags in Maranello flying. If you don't know, at the Ferrari factory, whenever they take home a sports car win, they put flags up. Whenever they take home a Formula 1 win, they put flags up. So go back a couple weeks ago to the Italian Grand Prix at Monza and the Lone Star Le Mans at Coda, Ferrari winning both of those. Granted, it was with the AF Corsa Ferrari 499P, but they did have flags flying on both sides of the original Ferrari building. Very good weekend for them. Trixit hoping it to bring home more victory here under the Tricolore, as Peach and your mom battling for those top spots here in practice. Peach setting the time to beat a 42.447. Trixit just 100th of a second behind. And looking at down here, Slapshot, also in the Ferrari 296, wanted to let it be known that he has come out of retirement looking for victory here tonight. Previous GFR season champion, looking to find some victory, but that is not the line for victory there. Maybe having to shake off a little bit of rust. Those colors are reminiscent of a Fernando Alonso livery, so could very well be the seasoned champion coming back with some rust to shake off of those rusty bolts. Trixit into the pit lane, your mom into the pit lane. Iceberg will dive into the pit lane. Pit lane entry practices Ouroboros in the Audi. They have also been running behind a little bit in points at the early stages of this season. We're running second fiddle to the Mustang of Ormiston. It was battles between Ouroboros or Prieto and Ormiston. Ouroboros and Prieto, the sister Audis. But it was 2 Audis versus 1 Mustang on the podium for quite some time, but that has all but dissolved. Ouroboros also looking for a good finish here. Definitely needing to gather up those points. Has had the pace, but just has not had the luck to bring it home in one piece throughout this season. So as we inch closer and closer towards the end of this season, definitely going to be eyes on Ouroboros in that Audi to try and clean up the act and get some points together here. Currently, the fastest time in practice does not mean much, as we have seen, especially on these more well-known tracks such as Imola. We will likely see lap times within the hundredths of a second between each other all the way down the order. Could see a repeat of what we had at Barcelona earlier, where the top 25 of the field was within 1 second on the pace in qualifying. We are going to have a split quali here tonight. 10 minutes for the amateur drivers, 10 minutes for the pro drivers. So we do have quite the entry list here tonight. 36 on track. And Ouroboros will abandon this lap, does not improve, but Prieto, who is actually not in the Audi tonight, hopping into the Acura NSX, deviating from the teammate and running the Honda. So Michael D no longer the sole Honda driver. And the number 21, the Aston Martin GT3, this is the one to watch. Second in the championship, closing up the gap to Ormiston, who has been having trouble in that Mustang. And Platypus, as long as he can bring home the pace, put together the pace to bring home the win here, could likely have the championship lead at the end of the night, which would be very crucial heading into the final rounds in the coming weeks. I believe we have 3 weeks left in this championship past this one tonight. So championship points, championship hopes, it is definitely still on for multiple drivers. Could be anyone's game to win. Could also be anyone's game to lose. Ormiston, currently the leader, needs to get some crucial points tonight, or could very well be at risk of losing that championship lead. Platypus gearing up for a flying lap coming out of Ravazza, allowing traffic to find its way past and opening up a gap to run and get some space in, possibly some slipstream. I think he's actually opened it up way past that slipstream window, but just wanting a clean run. Platypus here to try and see the benchmark on the pace. Is the Mustang of Peach up ahead in the 34. The 334, I believe, sorry. Platypus looking to put a lap time on the board that will contend with those of Ouroboros, Prieto, and Peach. Ouroboros, the only driver in the sub 42 second. Granted, it is only by 0.03 of a second, and very wide out of Tosa for Platypus. That could have very much affected the lap, and that is going to invalidate the lap wide at Piratella. Very, very easy to do. You want to carry that speed through, and during the race it may be worth it to take that risk. But in qualifying, you need to have that lap together to not go outside of those track limits and invalidate that lap. Qualifying will be extremely crucial here. An absolute traffic jam on lap 1 as we come into Tamburello, and it will not resolve itself. They will be 2 wide, possibly even 3 wide, jockeying for position into Variante Villeneuve. And after Tosa, everyone will start to get lined out single file. You will have some 2x2 battles down the field as we come to Aqua Minerale, but by the time you get to Variante Alta, you need to be lined up single file, because you cannot make it through Variante Alta, the very, very tight chicane, 2x2. There just simply is not enough room. In Italy, you need to be used to driving through tight roads, but that's not a two-way street through Variante Alta. Thank you to new viewers. If this is your first time tuning in tonight, please, if you wouldn't mind, hit that follow button on Twitch and subscribe on YouTube if you are not trying to hit 100 subscribers on YouTube. And all races are recorded and uploaded to the YouTube channel for viewing at a later date. Thank you to those of you on the YouTube channel. And if you would like to support the streams, please consider subscribing. And if you are a Thrustmaster user, please use code RetroVex at checkout on the Thrustmaster store. Platypus looking more confident and on a better lap here, could see an improvement in lap time. I think it's actually going to be a lap on the board. Platypus yet to put a lap on the board, as we are approaching 40 drivers entered tonight. So we have a little over 6 minutes left in this practice session. Platypus up into P2, just 45 thousandths of a second behind the lap time of the Audi of Ouroboros, splitting the two, Ouroboros and Prieto. And Platypus could be the next driver into the sub-42s. Another driver to watch is going to be the number 1 Ferrari 296 of Aramich, Aramich and Trixit both very quick. Aramich likely going to be one to look out for. As long as he can put a lap together, should be very high up the order. If not in the front row, will be in the top 8 if I had to put my money where my mouth is. Iceberg and the McLaren up into P4. That is going to be a very good position for qualifying if Iceberg can bring the same pace in qualifying. Giant up into P7 in that Manti livery Porsche 992 GT3R, and this is the story here. If you are going to be a motorsport journalist, this is what you would be writing about. The championship leader, Ormiston, currently only P9, half a second off the pace. Definitely needing to find that gap and close it up before we get to qualifying. Can do a little bit of pathfinding, a little bit of soul searching in qualifying to try and find that lost time, and you may just stumble across it with the lap of the gods, as it may seem. But right now, Ormiston not in a good opportunity, or not in a good position to hold on to the points championship. Does have the number 416 of Slapshot, not the 416, the 46. That is going to be, no, that's the 86 of Trixit. I saw a 6 and I thought I saw a 4, but that is the 86 of Trixit behind. Teammate to Aramich. Brad in the BMW. Also one to watch. Do not believe Brad has scored a victory. Unless Brad brought home the win last week at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. That may have happened, if anyone in the chat can confirm for me. I believe Brad may have taken home the win, but I'm not sure. Who won last week at the Nürburgring Nordschleife? Tell you what, I can just go ahead and check myself. It was Platypus that brought home the win last week. And Platypus only 26 points behind Ormiston. Prieto now less than a tenth behind the time of Platypus. Or behind, actually I say that, Platypus has just come across the line to put the absolute flyer on a 41.5, not messing around tonight. Will likely, if he can bring that pace together in qualifying, the rest of the field should see that gap and start to look for areas to improve. But Platypus leading the field by half a second in the Aston Martin. And Platypus is in a definite position to take hold of this championship. Give me just one moment and I will be right back. Just over a minute left in this free practice session, and Platypus is on top of the timing board. Do need to focus a little bit to the AM side. So I think we have a couple that are in the bronze category, but Mataj currently leading the AM field. And Mataj in P3. Where is Langley, though? I do not see Langley on the timing board tonight. Langley, the championship leader in AM, if he does not show, that could be a very good point scoring opportunity as the McLaren goes around. Which McLaren was that? I want to say it may have been the McLaren of Rogue, and I believe it was. But 15 seconds left of this practice session. Platypus putting up the time to beat, but needs to repeat that lap in qualifying. It is a little bit easier said than done. Has improved, though. Prieto also improved within that time. And Iceberg within 3/4 of a second. Ouroboros also within 3/4 of a second. The times very close to each other. Not everyone getting that lap that they need in, but with the split qualifying, we will see more opportunity for clean laps down the order, as it will come down to the number 20 of it recruit. As they will be the last across the line. Does Platypus improve on this final lap in practice? Does not. It is a pit lane practice and a good stop there. We do have the 7:13 of Wilson coming across the line looking to set a lap. What will it be for Wilson? As we have actually been disconnected. Wonder if that is a server reset. Give us just a moment. So we make sure that everything is a-okay. That was a server reset, so we are going to have another practice session. Sorry about that. So we will have an FP2, and everyone gets a little bit longer to get that practice in, as we do have the field joining back in. 1 second, not quite yet. They said they are not ready for us yet, so we will just wait a moment. So we will join back in, 5-minute practice session, and then be back racing shortly. We should have qualifying here in just a moment. As I believe everyone has connected. And we will have a short quali, or not a short quali, a short practice before qualifying. As we do have a few takers rolling out of the pit lane. Did see the 416 of Slapshot, and they are going to be the first out of the pit lane, looking to get a little bit more track time. We'll have about 2 laps of track time to get some more practice in before we get started with qualifying. There is going to be a 20-minute split qualifying, 10 minutes per class with this many cars. As Slapshot comes around Tosa, it will be a 10-minute amateur qualifying. And then they have 10 minutes to get a lap started. If they start their lap before the 10 minutes is up, they are allowed to finish said lap, but they cannot start another. At 10 minutes, the pros will begin to roll out. And we will continue on with Pro Quali. Pro Quali is going to be one to watch, as it could be anyone's game. As of right now, the battle seems to be between Prieto, Ouroboros, Iceberg, and Platypus. Slapshot getting a little bit more practice in here tonight. The WD-40 in the joints of his racing machine tonight. Has not raced in a while, but is looking to put on a good show for us tonight. And as I said earlier, blue and yellow. With those colors reminiscent of Fernando Alonso taking back the wheel, hopping back into the saddle after a little bit of a vacation from racing. Slapshot looking to put on a masterclass tonight as a seasoned driver can. Previous season champion of Slapshot here. Chasing down the Mustang up ahead of, I believe that is going to be Mustang of Slinky or Christian B. It's actually Peach. I thought I saw more white on that car, but it is the Mustang of Peach. This qualifying is going to be very interesting. It could go anyone's way. This Peach brings us into Aqua Minerale. Down into the compression, up the hill. Sleeping policeman on the inside can be used, but they will unsettle the car. And very, very slick painted tarmac that you cannot get much grip on. Variante Alta with curbs that you can cut, but a very, very fine line between a valid and invalid lap over those curbs. A lot of time to be found if you can go through Variante Alta perfectly. Do need a little bit of rotation of the car to kind of squirm through the chicane. But Peach and Slapshot looking to bring us a good lap here. See what kind of pace Slapshot is running, at least on a one-time flying lap. And it was a 42.9. As Peach goes straight on through Tamburello, the sand slowing him down. And that would be a very, very quick lap were it valid. And now we get ready for qualifying. A few more drivers left to come across the line before this practice session is over, and it is over now. We don't get any more time. Amateur qualifying has begun. It is a split qualifying. And who is going to be out first? It looks to be the 99 of Schwartz and the Ferrari 296. First out into the fray, leading AM qualifying. So Schwartz needing to warm those tires, does have the number 20 of it Recruit behind. And through the trees as we watch them come around Tosa. Do believe that is the 20 of it Recruit, but I could be wrong. It is the 20 of it Recruit. We do have the 30 of Lozano, who I think should still be in this qualifying session as well. But Schwartz looking to set the pace in AM Quali. We'll have about 5 laps to get in. Car number 713. That is Wilson with an off at Tosa. Seemed like that car had some issues, or just trying to run behind traffic. On board with Schwartz running down into Ravazza. Coming through the double left-handers. What will it be when we see when he comes across the line next time? Does need to make sure that the lap is going to be valid, as Schwartz does have the best track position. Nobody coming out in front of him in the pit lane. Granted, that does take away slipstream that you otherwise would be getting, and some drivers behind may be taking use of, but you have the cleanest air. The track is in its best condition, and this is the time where you push. You will likely not get another lap like this, especially with as busy of a track as we're going to have. I believe we have over 20 cars in each class. And a little wide through Variant to Villeneuve. Should be overall okay. Tosa, a very big point to gain or lose time. And now Piratella needs to keep it between the white lines. Keep it between the mayonnaise. And it's a good run through Piratella. Down into Aqua Minerale. The whole lap can come apart here. 2 tires on the inside curb, 2 tires on the outside, 2 tires on the inside again, and then you can run on that serrated curbing, the painted tarmac on the outside. Now Variante to the big time to make up time if you're going to. Very wide setup using those curbs, or at least using the first one, not so much using the second. But a good exit out. It does seem to be opening up a large gap to the 20 of It Recruit behind, who does have the 427 of Nate in the McLaren closing up behind as well. Around the double left of Ravazza one more time for Schwartz. And what will it be to set the time to beat in AM quali with all of the space in the world? And as clean of a track as you could hope for. 43.3 for Schwartz, who is going to beat it. It Recruit, a 43.0 currently on pole. Nate goes 0.4 of a second behind. Mataj into the 42s, a 42.6. Mataj in a very good position in this championship, but does have some room to close up in that championship fight. Yakashoka's previous race winner in that Lamborghini, currently P2 in AM. Mataj with the time to beat. George Sturr across the line. Michael D with the McLaren of Manelli behind. Manelli also one to watch out for. Could put a lap time in contention for the pole or podium at any moment. Mataj currently the one to beat in AM. Still a few drivers yet to set a lap. Rodriguez, Sierra, Lozano, Batman, Slinky, Langley, the current AM championship leader, as Langley needs to have a good result tonight to further increase the lead in that championship and across the line to reset the validity of the lap and get another flying lap in here. Rogue, Dingham, and McPeachy. Dingham also another driver to watch out for. FCP, Bad Bunny Flow, Christian B, all drivers still yet to set a flying lap, but Mataj is the one to beat ahead of all of them. Coming out of Ravazza again, does have the slipstream of the BMW up ahead of She Love Frank, who I believe is out a little bit early as a pro driver. Taj improved by a couple tenths of a second. Nate currently P2. Manelli P3 now. What will Yakashokas bring to the table? P4, It Recruit down to P5, but Mataj still on pole in AM. Lozano P14, Prophet P15, Michael D P13, Chandler P12, Georgester P11. Dingham up into P6. Schwartz, the first out now, down to P7. Frank currently in P8. And Mataj now trying to find a way past the BMWs. They both go wide. The BMW bows out of the lap. That will allow Mataj to have some clean air. Does have Nate currently in P2 up ahead. But a little over 3 minutes left in this AM qualifying session before we get started with the Pro Quali, the big show tonight. Mataj currently the AM pole sitter. I was going to say the only AM in the 42s, but is not. Nate Manelli, Yakas Shokas, all within those 42-second marks. Car number 555. Manelli with issues at Variante Alta. Schwartz now up into the pole position, just 0.007 of a second faster than the Porsche of Mataj, and it is now on. They will have 2 more laps to get a little bit of an improvement. Mataj does not need to improve much. Will it be an improvement? Was not on the last lap. And now it is Mataj versus Schwartz for the pole position in AM. Nate currently in P3, Langley currently P14, and that is not where Langley is going to want to start, especially in contention, currently leading in the AM Championship. And it is going to be very hard to find your way through because you are going to have pros mixed all the way through that field. Schwartz into the pit lane and is going to finish their qualifying session. Will not have enough time to get back out on track and try another lap. Mataj will have 1 more lap to try to improve. Doesn't need much, just needs 0.007 of a second. And I mean, that could just be a little bit more fuel out of the car, being that difference in time. Nate currently in P3, but no one is touching the top 2, the front row in AM of Schwartz and Mataj. Those times are actually going to should catapult them pretty far up into the pro field. 42.4. We did see a few of our pros dropping into the 41s. Could see some low 41s, potentially even a 40. As of right now, 42 in AM is good enough for pole position. Schwartz stays in the pit lane, will not be able to improve. Mataj, is it an improvement on this lap? It is. 1.5 tenths of a second. Mataj currently in a good position to hold on to pole position. 30 seconds away from pros rolling out, and we do have pros starting to stack up in the pit lane as they are ready to get rolling. Mataj, 42.3, the time to be in AM, and that should put quite a few cars between him and his AM competitors when it comes to the overall grid positioning. Schwartz will not be able to improve. Manelli will not improve, abandoning the lap. 7 seconds away, 5 seconds away from the pros rolling out of the pit lane. And who is out front in pro? As the pros now leave the pit lane, it looks to be Ouroboros in the Audi with the 21 of Platypus next in line behind. They are having to stay to the outside to not hinder the laps of those AM drivers. They finally get space to let those engines breathe as they will all fight for track temperature and track position to build temperature in those tires. Ouroboros currently leads. We will let them get started with their outlap as we watch Mataj. If Mataj has any time left in the bank, we'll definitely be putting it towards another lap. If not, we'll dive into the pit lane. Is not going into the pit lane, so Mataj has a little bit more under his belt. What has he got? Is it enough for a sub 42? It is almost enough, a 42.069 for Mataj. Dingham currently up into P2, knocking Schwartz down to P3. Dingham up on the front row in AM. We have a couple more drivers in AM to come across. Chandler in the Porsche, also the 713 of Wilson looking to improve. But behind them, it is the pro field looking to swarm as they are about to get started with their laps. The 83 of Chandler, is it going to be enough to improve? Still pushing on this lap, so has some time in his pocket. What are we looking at for Chandler? Up into P16, what will it be for Wilson next across the line? Does not improve, stays P12. Hopping onto our pro field, Ouroboros first across the line, has that clean track position that we saw Schwartz have in the previous practice session, that AM session. Coming into Tamburello, using a lot of the curb and trying to carry as much throttle through here as possible without unsettling the car. Do not want to engage that traction control. Platypus way outside, coming through the exit of Tamburello into Variante Villeneuve. A little bit of a four-wheel slide for Ouroboros coming out, but that is going to be good for speed. Into Tosa, very tight, narrow line. 2 tires on the outside. On the outside, absolute limit. The exit of Tosa. Platypus and Peach behind are not going to be on valid laps, and I believe they do have the number 2 of Iceberg. I believe I saw that blue McLaren behind. Clean through Piratella for Ouroboros. Aqua Minerale, another opportunity for a mistake or an opportunity to gain a lot of time. Very wide at the exit of Aqua Minerale, but I think it is going to be enough to stay valid. Variante Alta, this is where you gain and lose a lot of time. A lot of the curves through entry, a lot of the curves through exit, and very, very wide. Easy to go too wide and run outside of those track limits, but I think Ouroboros has done it absolutely perfectly. Platypus ahead of the 334 of Peach, but I think neither of those two behind are going to be on clean laps, but they do have opportune track position that they should be able to use. Far enough behind the Audi of Ouroboros to not be in dirty air, but they are not going to have any slipstream. Peach in the 334 Mustang should be close enough for slipstream. At 41.3, we may see times down into the 40s here at Imola. Ouroboros setting the time to beat in pro, clattering over the curb, absolutely on the limit, trying to find whatever time he can. A 41.3, the time to beat. Both Peach and Platypus behind. Did not set a lap on that previous lap. Ormiston set a lap, but is only 1.5 seconds behind the lap of Ouroboros. Slapshot into P3 with some time to gain. Brad also with time to gain, but Ouroboros going around at Aqua Minerale, absolutely on the limit and just stepped over it, and is going to sacrifice that crucial track position as the 21 of Platypus is going to go past and is now up at the front of the field with that clean air, all of the clean air in the world to use, as long as no one comes out of the pit lane ahead. And Platypus coming out of Rivazza was very wide, missed the apex at that corner exit. Could be in a position to put up a contentious lap for pole position. It is enough for pole position, 75 thousandths of a second, the gap between Platypus and Ouroboros, and Platypus is not coming to play tonight. 41.2 for Platypus, now the time to beat. And Prieto, former Audi driver, this time in the Acura Honda NSX, a quarter of a second behind those lap times, but look at that, 1 second the gap from P1 to P12, and we still have a lot of the pro field yet to get their fastest laps in, but Platypus into the pit lane, I think, to get some fresh tires and fuel. Will sacrifice some of that track position off the jacks and should be rolling soon. So there he is rolling out of the pit lane, as we do see the number 1 of Aramich up ahead. And flying out of the pit lane is Platypus. Once again, back into clean air. Giant in the Manti livery Porsche. Definitely filling those shoes that come with that livery. And then a little bit wide through Tamburello. But up into P3 for Giant, knocking Prieto down to P4, Your Mom, and P5. Slapshot in his gracious return to GFR. currently in P6, Trixit in P7, Peach P8, Mad Psycaster P9, Stolowski P10. Aramich currently P13, and we have seen the Ferraris very far up the order. Same with the BMW of Brad. The Mustang of Ormiston is the talking point, the current championship leader. But if he's unable to bring a high score or a high point scoring position tonight, and if Platypus takes home the win, that is going to be the championship lead handed over to Platypus. What does Ormiston bring to the table? It's only good enough for P9 so far. Platypus through Variante Alta, looking to find more time. Same with the 3 of Ouroboros in the Audi. Giant into the pit lane. If he gets out rolling, we'll have another lap to try to improve. Prieto currently P4, looking to find some more time. Your Mom up into P5, Slapshot P6, Brad now P7, knocking Trixit down a peg. Iceberg P9, we have seen that McLaren, at least in the practice session, very high up the order. Could just be waiting for that lap. Platypus still a 41.237. We'll have this lap and one more to try to improve if he's got enough fuel left in that car. And Ouroboros coming out of Ravazza, does he have that 3/4 of a tenth of a second to improve on his lap? Or will it come down to the final lap for Ouroboros? Does Ouroboros clap back to Platypus and force him to answer? Does not, and it is all down to this for Ouroboros. Platypus currently in a good position, especially with another lap under his belt to try and hold on to this pole position. 41.237, the time to beat has not been beaten. Ouroboros the closest as Peach beats it 0.02 of a second. Platypus now has just a marginal amount of time to improve, but needs to get back to the start-finish line. And if this lap is not good enough, needs to just find a little bit more. Hopefully he's got enough fuel in it. Hopefully he's fast enough. Peach will not improve, does not need any insurance. Platypus, 0.02 of a second. Trixit, 0.02 of a second behind. Absolutely matches that time of Platypus. 0.02 of a second between P1 and P3 here in Pro Quali. Peach is in the pit lane, will not improve. Platypus coming through Ravazza. Will he be able to improve? Will he be able to take this pole position back? Or will he have to try on this final lap? All or nothing for Platypus very well could be the order on this next lap, and I think it is, setting up very wide to carry as much speed through as possible. Is not an improvement. Everything comes down to this lap. Platypus cannot make a mistake as Your Mom drops a 41.097 bombshell on the field, now making it a much harder task to improve. And look at that, how this has been shaken up. Your Mom and the McLaren dropping that absolute bombshell. We could see a 1:40. Your Mom does not improve. Sorry about that, a little bit of a misinput. Your Mom does not improve. Peach does not improve. Ouroboros is on pole position of 41.050, 47,000ths of a second. The gap to Your Mom. Does Iceberg and the McLaren have anything to bring to the table? Is it going to be an improvement for Iceberg? Coming across the line, P10 for Iceberg. What about the 86 of Trixit? Into the pit lane will not improve. The 416 of Slapshot on his gracious return back to GFR. Previous season champion looking to rustle the feathers of those currently in the championship fight. And is it going to be enough for Slapshot? Hugging very narrow, so I think he's got something. It's at least an improvement. P7 for Slapshot. Brad in the BMW into pole position, 41.025. A 1/4 of a tenth between that and the time of Ouroboros in the Audi. The 114 next across the line of Harold does not improve. Currently P20, the number 21 of Platypus. Is he able to bring this pole position back? Is not. 0.05 of a second between Brad and Platypus. The number 1 of Aramich into the pit lane does not improve. The 420 of Mad Psycaster in that Porsche has about a second, or almost a second, to close up to try and take that pole position away, but he still has something under his belt, as a half-second improvement is going to be quite a few positions. Mad Sidecaster does not improve. P12 for the Manti Porsche. Well, in AM, Mataj on pole with Dingham P2, Schwartz P3, Manelli P4. It Recruit P5, Nate P6, Yakashokas P7, Rodriguez P8, Langley P9, Michael D P10, Wilson P11, Bad Bunny P12, Georgester P13, Cade P14, Chandler P15, Christian B P16, Batman P17, Slinky P18, Sierra P19, Peachy P20, Prophet P21, Rogue P22, FCP P23, and Rowden P24 in pro. Brad in the BMW on the last lap at the very last moment snagged the pole position. Snagged the pole in pro. P1 for Brad, P2 for Platypus. And Platypus is likely going to be very elbows out at the beginning of this race. Ouroboros P3, Your Mom P4, Peach P5, Trixit P6, Slapshot P7, Giant P8, Prieto P9, Iceberg P10, Ormiston P11, Mad Sidecaster P12, Aramich P13, Stalowski P14, Brute P15, Harrell P16, Autry P17, Marvy P18, Frank P19, and that is it for pro. Well, we have a spicy one tonight. Brad on pole position, the Aston Martin of Platypus lined up alongside, and Ouroboros the Audi. We have seen Ouroboros go for those early moves in these races, and I believe we should see more of the same. Your Mom did run a very, very quick lap at the end, but it was not enough, as Your Mom goes down to P4. Ormiston, the talking point, needs to bring home the good result tonight, or is at risk of losing the championship lead, or if not, it would just be down to a couple points. Ormiston has all of the work on his shoulders and is not in the best position to make it happen. Slapshot in his return to GFR, currently P7. And Brad will lead us off the line as we get started with this formation lap. It is very pretty conditions here in the Tricolore here at Imola, as you will see the tricolor all around the track telling you exactly where we are, but no Ferraris in the top 5. There is one on the third row, but it's Trixit in the Ferrari. Brad in that BMW, they are large cars, but Brad is going to have to make that BMW, that M4 GT3, very, very large coming into Tamburello. You very quickly give up the inside into turn 2, but being corners in such quick succession, it is hard to hold that through. Platypus needs to either eye the inside into Tamburello or line up just behind. Turn 1 is going to be very crucial here. Extremely easy to get caught up in traffic and in an incident. And with over 40 cars on track tonight, one incident at the front of the field is going to absolutely accordion affect the rest of the field behind. Battle here in AM. Mataj with Dingham. An AM battle at the line. I believe it is going to be Mataj on the inside with Dingham on the outside. Schwartz will be lined up just behind. Harrell, the pro driver, thrown directly in the middle of that AM mix. Manelli, P19, currently P4 in AM, will be right there as well. Harrell will try to find his way through the AM field, but is likely going to have a hard time in doing so, especially with all those cars ahead battling for position. As we come through Aqua Minerale, Brad leading Platypus, as they are going to be dragging those brakes a lot, generating that brake temperature, scrubbing those tires, building temperature in those tires. As we come to Variante Alta, we are quickly approaching the green flag here. Round 7 at Imola. If it's your first time tuning in on Twitch, you're here for a good one. Please hit that follow button. If you want to wait till the end, wait and see how it goes, that's perfectly fine with me. If you are watching on YouTube, thank you. And if you are not, if you wouldn't mind subscribing to the YouTube channel, And if you have a Twitch Prime subscription, if you would use that in supporting the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. We come into Rivazza, turn 1 of Rivazza before we come to turn 2 and get spit out onto the front straight. I have anxiety like I'm sitting here on the front row in this car. 40 cars out here, very tight margins all the way through the field for every single position. Any marginal increase in time was a position gained, and the fight for the pole position came down to thousandths, not hundredths of a second, not tenths of a second, thousandths of a second. Some drivers running identical lap times, 40 cars in this field. 2 will be victorious, 1 in Am, 1 in Pro, and 1 may end up being the new championship leader tonight. As we get ready to take the green flag, they come up to the line 2 by 2. Green, green, green. Brad in the BMW with a good start. Platypus in the Aston Martin having to find the way through. May have the inside heading into Tamburello. How does everyone fare there? 3 wide into turn 1. Your mom tries to stick it around the outside, but goes around. How is that going to be for the rest of the field behind? I think they have all sort of spread out. Ouroboros in the Audi did have to abandon the lap and is going to plummet like a rock down the order. Getting back onto the battle for the lead. Platypus and Brad. Brad did end up holding on to it. I think Platypus just having to back out of the throttle, but 3 wide into turn 1. It is not going to work there. Also an incident behind between Slinky. That is also the Ferrari, or that is the Ferrari of Slinky, and we've got more cars around. That is going to be the NSX of Michael D, I believe. As they come through Aqua Minerale for the first time, they seem to have found their footing, at least here at the front of the field, but it is tight running all the way back. Platypus in an opportunity for the lead here, needs to find a way past the BMW very quickly. Mataj has opened up a gap to the chasing Am cars behind. Yakashokas 3 cars behind the leading Mataj in that Porsche. And a shakeup of the field. Rogue getting a drive-through penalty for a starting infringement. Brad and Platypus coming in a line down the front straight. Brad will lead the first lap of this race. Starting on pole, will lead the first lap, but Platypus is going to have that slipstream tow all the way down the pit straight. As they come into Tamburello, Brad trying to take it a little bit safe, but does take it a little bit too safe. Platypus in the Aston Martin has closed that gap up greatly. Is he going to eye a move into Variante Villeneuve? Slightly defensive, a little bit of argy-bargy between the two. Weave this way, weave that way. Playing some follow the leader into the braking zone. But Brad is making that BMW large, and they are going to stack up behind the further that this battle goes on. The Acura of Prieto battling the McLaren of Iceberg, and Mataj trying to find a way past the Porsche of Mad Psycaster. Ormiston made it through almost unaffected, it seems. Aramich the same. Ouroboros did have to abandon the lap, or abandon the track, in order to avoid that collision. Dropped like a rock, currently sitting in P13. Yakashokas trying to close the gap to the leading Am of Mataj. Back on the fight for the lead, Brad, Platypus, and Trixit making it a 3-way fight. Peach, Giant, Slapshot, all here. I think Slapshot may have a little bit of damage on that Ferrari 296, is dropping back from the Manti Porsche of Giant, but I think that could just be a little bit of me having poor eyesight looking at that livery. It looks like it's got some side damage, but does not seem to have any. Brad will lead the second lap, as I think everyone seems to have found their footing. We did have a little bit of argy-bargy racing incident at the beginning. Any incidents will be reported and reviewed, and will have penalties applied accordingly by race control post-race. Any official results will be posted at a later date. Any results at the end of the race on stream are unofficial until deemed official by race control post-race. Out of Variante Villeneuve, and it seems to be more of the same. Brad trying to defend against the Aston Martin of Platypus, and now you start to have this battle develop, trying to find the gap. The number 34. Who is that in the 34? That is the 34 of Dingham in the McLaren. Now dropping back quite a ways, and the 99 of Schwartz, I think, had an off at Tamburello and has some damage on the front of that 296. Doesn't seem to be too much, but it could be time added in the pit lane to repair that car. The front pack has not necessarily broken away from the rest of the field. There are some gaps starting to form. The number 416 of Slapshot in his debut return around at Variante Alta will drop back behind the 12 of Aramich, and that is a lot of positions lost for Slapshot. The number 3 of Ouroboros leading the charge, as this is where we are starting to see our first degree of separation from the rest of the field. Ouroboros does need to try and catch the Ferrari of Slapshot to hold on to that slipstream. Otherwise, we will see a mid-pack start to develop. Mataj currently leading in AM with a large margin, 4 cars between him and the Lamborghini of Yakashokis. Platypus has now found a run. A weak spot in the armor of that BMW is Tamburello, as Platypus has found that he is able to carry a whole lot more speed through, but nowhere to really take it as you have that straight into Variante Villeneuve. Very hard to go through some sections of this track too wide. So I think we are actually going to go on board with the 296 of Trixit and watch a little bit of this battle from behind as they come into Piratella. All 3 of them using the curbs on both the inside and outside of the track. Up into Aqua Minerale, absolutely maximizing the track using every single bit that is possible. Now Platypus is in a little bit of an awkward situation here, needs to close up to the leader of Brad, but does have the hard charging of Trixit in this Ferrari 296. Just behind that gap is starting to open up a little bit though. Giant has now broken free of the grasp of Iceberg and has actually broken free of Mataj by quite a bit as well. Those 2 Porsches, actually no, it's Mad Psycaster, sorry, a little bit of a doppelganger situation. Battle between Aramich and Ormiston, though we have seen this battle at a few different times this season, but it's usually for the lead or the podium of this race. They are currently battling for P10. Slapshot will likely fall into that battle, Ouroboros as well. You have a battle of race leaders and race winners in the mid-pack. Trixit has now found a way past the Aston Martin of Platypus. And Platypus will just have to follow behind, so I think he has begun to drop back a little bit. Peach and Giant, we have a 5-way battle for the lead here. So I think it's almost a 6-way. Trixit has found a lot of pace and is putting the pressure onto the BMW of Brad. Is that BMW starting to have a little bit of pace fall off early in this race, or are we just seeing kind of the home field advantage being a Ferrari here at Imola? People do kind of call it FIA Rari, as Ferraris do get a little bit of preferential treatment sometimes, but not when you make a mistake too wide into Ravazza, as Platypus will hold the inside. And while a good battle is always good to see, Peach wants to make it 3 wide. Actually, we'll just try to follow Platypus through and push Trixit down another position, and now may end up being caught out, as actually Peach not going to be getting caught out. Trixit now getting caught out will lose 2, as I think the Porsche of Giant is going to be able to pull through as well as they get into Tamburello. Trixit tried to fight that track position back, but was just overall unable to, from P2 to P5 in about half of a lap. That is going to be perfect for Brad. It's also perfect for the McLaren of Iceberg and the Honda of Prieto, as they have now made it a 7-car battle for the lead. What these drivers need to do, they may need to have a little bit of teamwork here. Cannot allow the BMW of Brad to pull away while they battle behind, as it will all but secure the win for Brad tonight. Platypus still in a good position, though. If Platypus does bring home P2, it may be enough for the Season 3 championship lead. Granted, Ormiston does not gain a few more positions. Still scoring points, but would not be scoring as much as if they were up at the front of the field. Mataj still leading in AM, has the aforementioned Mustang of Ormiston fighting for position behind. She loved Frank in the 62 BMW following behind the AM podium. The final spot on the AM podium held by Yakashokas. Brute behind the now Mustang of Cabe as they come into Variante Alta. Brute trying to find a way past the Mustang and is in a good opportunity to do so. The 222 of Stolowski, an early pit strategy. Coming into the pit lane, did not have a penalty, but I think has got that stop cleared, is going to go long, and that could play directly into his hand later on. Brad opening up the gap to Platypus, opening up the gap to Peach. Peach, Giant, Trixit, Iceberg, and Prieto all in a battle for position. Now a 5-way battle for the final spot on the podium, as Platypus has now got some room to breathe to try and catch the BMW of Brad up ahead. Ouroboros versus Ormiston. Where have we seen this before? Usually, once again, this battle is for the lead. Slapshot did get dropped out of this fight, but Ouroboros trying to find a way past the Mustang of Ormiston. The longer their battle goes on, the closer Slapshot would be able to get to it. Aramich following behind the Porsche of Mad Psycaster, does have the AM leading Porsche of Mataj just behind us, and we are getting closer and closer towards pit stops. Battling side by side into Variante Alta just behind it. I think Giant had to maybe make a little bit of evasive maneuvers there. Did Iceberg go straight on through Variante Alta? No. It was the race leader of Brad, straight on at Variante Alta. Platypus up into the lead. Just like that, this race is almost handed to Platypus as Brad makes a mistake and has dropped down to P6 now. Extremely unfortunate, but just like that, your race can completely unravel. Platypus now leading with Peach in tow. Actually far outside of the slipstream range, and Platypus is all on his own at the front with almost no traffic up ahead. An early stop for Prieto. Is this a strategy call? Coming into the pit lane, early stop going on a different pit strategy. We'll have to see how that works out in the long run. With a field this close, you could be timing that stop to come out in clean traffic and run a race all on your own and not have to really deal with any traffic in terms of battling or potentially making contact. Peach with some pressure coming behind from Trixit once again. Does have to try and close up to the Mustang up ahead, but Platypus opening up the gap. It is an absolute draft train from P2 all the way down to P12. 10 cars, or actually 11 cars all together. This is the lead pack. The leader himself has broken away, but that also is going to pull him out of that slipstream range. Not really going to be able to be afforded the fuel saving that those cars behind will have. Platypus does have the fastest lap. actually was that previous lap. 41.095 the lap time for Platypus. Taj running a 42.7 with Manelli running a 43.2 the previous lap. Times within a couple tenths in AM, but Mataj does have the outright pace advantage over the rest of the AM field. I think we may have a battle beginning to develop. No, we do not. They are quite far away from each other between Manelli and Yakashokas, but Nate in the pink McLaren just behind. Where is Langley in all of this? Currently in last. I think may have been involved in some of those early race incidents. Slapshot early into the pit lane. The 334 of Peach getting a drive-through penalty for track limits, and that is not going to help him one bit, but that is going to raise the eyebrow for the rest of the field. I think he's going to have to come in and serve this penalty as early as possible. That is going to get the rest of the field thinking, okay, cannot afford any issues, cannot afford any more track limit violations. Where are they running where they are getting those track limit violations? Peach diving into the pit lane, cannot afford a 30-second stop and go, and I think it is a clean stop, but that just opens up the gap even more. 4.2 seconds to the P2 of Trixit, now behind Giant, moves up into P3, but Iceberg in the McLaren looking to make a move on the inside into Tamburello, ultimately had to back out of it as Giant was not going to afford Iceberg the space. Harrell and Manelli, P11 and P12. Brad down into P5, not out of this fight for the lead, and not out of the fight for this championship either. Was at one point in the lead, did run the pole sitting lap, but just a mistake at Variante Alta, I think a little bit too late into the braking zone, straight on through into the sand trap, and dropped back about 5 positions. Battle for positions in AM for sure. Yakashokas with the Porsche of Brute, then the McLaren of Nate. Autry and Peach having a battle is actually, I think it's Peach going to have to try and claw back some track position. More battles back in the AM field as well. And Platypus approaching the 222 of Stolowski. Prieto is cleared, is ahead of the Lamborghini of FCP. Slapshot is cleared, Stolowski is cleared, Langley is cleared, but I believe Langley is laps down. Giant and Aramich into the pit lane, coming in a couple laps early, a little bit before the halfway point. Are we going to see more early stops? We have already seen quite a few more than normal. Are we going to see more early stops, as that does seem to be a strategy call a lot of the field is taking. Platypus is now going to be approaching some traffic. May not have to deal with that traffic before the time to pit comes. The 62 of Frank into the pit lane. Wilson into the pit lane, Batman into the pit lane, Recruit into the pit lane. We have quite a few coming and earlier than usual. Giant off the jacks, rolling out. Aramich is going to lose a position here. Is he repairing damage or is he just putting more fuel in it? Platypus now has the question, when does the leader come in? Trixit running very, very wide at the exit of Variante Alta. Platypus into Ravazza. Starting to have the question, do I come in now? Do I use the lead that I have? I have a couple seconds. A big moment coming out of Ravazza. A lot of counters here to keep that Aston Martin straight. And the number 62 gets a 30-second stop and go for speeding in pit lane. That is not going to be the stop that you want. And the leader approaching behind. Iceberg into the pit lane from P4. Brad back up into P3. Still has quite a ways to go, but is on the podium for the time being. Platypus now with traffic to negotiate. Harrell comes into the pit lane. Iceberg still in the pit lane. I think it's a long stop. The number 12 of Profit with damage on that McLaren went straight on at Variant to Villeneuve. Into Piratella for the race leader. Is in a bit of traffic now, but is approaching the pit window, likely the pit window for his strategy. Still holding the lead nicely. Harrell still in the pit lane, Autry in the pit lane, Iceberg off the jacks and rolling now. How is that going to affect the fight for positions there? FCP rolling out of the pit lane. Quite a few already having come in. Aramich is out of the pit lane. Slapshot out of the pit lane. Autry still in. Chandler into the pit lane now. Platypus diving into the pit lane behind the number 62 BMW of Frank. And Platypus hopefully getting a good stop, hopefully a clean stop. Does not want a speeding penalty in pit lane. Psycaster comes in. Trixit stays out. Brad stays out. Ouroboros stays out. Mataj stays out. Ormiston stays out. Platypus, your leader, into the pit lane. Looks to be a clean stop. Now Trixit taking the traffic that Platypus was dealing with previously. Manelli into the pit lane. Dingham going up the inside of the Ferrari of Autry. Now Trixit. Eyes go to Trixit. Platypus still in the pit lane. The BMW comes off the jacks faster. Slower stop for Platypus. Psycaster still in. The BMW of Bad Bunny comes in. Manelli still in the pit lane. Clean stop for Peach, I believe. Actually, no way to know yet. Has not exited the pit lane officially. No penalty is clean. Does have a lot of traffic coming out just behind. A battle, and that is not going to be what he needs. They make contact 2 by 2 into Tamburello. The NSX of Michael D and the Mustang of Lozano. Platypus needs to make sure that, or needs to hope that those two up ahead keep it clean, as Platypus does not want to get involved in any sort of mess there. And also has the Porsche of Giant just behind. And they are battling very hard for positions just ahead of the race, or was the race leader. Brad now into the pit lane, Mataj into the pit lane, your AM leader. This is where we have seen the races won or lost. A hiccup in the pit lane can absolutely ruin your chances of taking home victory. Dingham staying out. Mataj in. Brad in. Brute in. Nate in. Peach not in. Platypus now through that battle of Lozano and Michael D into a little bit of clean air for a short time. Christian B rolling into the pit lane now. Brad off the jacks rolling out. Georgester and the Porsche behind comes in. Peach still out. Trixit still out. Ouroboros still out. Did they put the fuel in it to go long, or is it just a reaction to the race? Do they think they have pace to hold on longer into the race than the race leaders? Brad actually just behind the at once was the race leader. Just behind the at once was race leader. Platypus, Giant. As we've got all sorts of shakeups on the timing board. Trixit into the pit lane from the race lead. Ouroboros will now lead this lap. Ormiston stays out. Yakashokis into Ravazza likely will come in at the end of this lap. Into the pit lane and stopped on the jacks for the Ferrari of Trixit. The McLaren of Profit comes in. Rowden in the pit lane. Profit and Slinky coming out of the pit lane. Autry, I believe, into the pit lane. That is not Autry. Sorry, bit of a sneeze on my end. Had to mute to save you guys that burden. Trixit, off the jacks, rolling out of the pit lane. Platypus, the furthest ahead scored driver to have come out of the pits, but does have the Porsche of Giant in tow just behind. How does Trixit come out? Just barely makes it out. Was it a slow stop from Platypus? We see Trixit just in the background. Rolling out ahead, Trixit will be in the lead of this race. Dingham into the pit lane, Cave in the pit lane, Rodriguez in the pit lane. Platypus with the Porsche of Giant behind, and that Porsche is definitely applying some pressure. Is the overcut the way to go? Staying out whenever the car behind comes in or whenever the car ahead comes in? Seems to be Platypus and Giant battling into Tosa. As I think Platypus is not very happy with this. This is not what he wants, but still needs to generate that tire temperature, and I think that Porsche may be ready to go a little bit quicker than the Aston Martin. Ouroboros in the pit lane, Ormiston in the pit lane, Profit rolling out of the pit lane, Lozano in the pit lane. That Mustang we saw just in the foreground, now in the background. Yakashokis in the pit lane, Peach. Is Peach going to come in? Peach does not come in. Peach stays out. Peach will lead this lap. It is now Trixit with Platypus behind. Does have the 62 BMW of Frank, but Platypus also having to deal with the number 221 Manti liveried Porsche just behind, and that lime green in your mirror is definitely going to take a little bit of your focus away. A little bit of mind games behind that livery, as it typically shows that if you're going to run that livery, you have the gusto to drive that car and fill those shoes. Trixit currently leading, a Ferrari leading in Italy at Imola. How fitting would that be? The prancing horse running wildly under the waving tricolore. Giant chasing Platypus. Platypus chasing the 62 of Frank, chasing the 86 of Trixit. Yakashokis in the pit lane, or actually now coming out of the pit lane, but Mataj has retaken that lead. The number 25 of Christian B with a straight on at Variante Alta. Peach still yet to pit, and is definitely going to be losing some positions. Coming into Ravazza now, and likely will pit now. But the 86 of Trixit currently leading the race is just running into Variante Alta. Peach comes into the pit lane, needs to be a perfect stop to minimize positions lost. But it is now Platypus and Giant battling for position. They did make it past the BMW, but Giant has found the pace in that Manti liveried Porsche. And as they head side by side into Ravazza, does one outbreak the other? No, but just nowhere to go for Platypus. Has to concede the position and will hopefully be able to follow the hopefully faster Porsche to hopefully the back of the Ferrari 296 in the lead of Trixit. Trixit has hit the strategy on the head, coming out of the pit lane ahead of the previous race leader. At least whenever we started these pit stops, And Giant in that Manti Porsche, I believe, looking for his first podium. Hoping to take that home. Peach off the jacks now, but dropping down positions quite rapidly. Aramich, the sister Ferrari, running just behind the NSX of Prieto, but Ormiston and Ouroboros still continuing this battle. This is a battle that we have seen between these two this entire season. Wilson just behind the Ferrari of It Recruit. Yakashokas with the 222 of Stolowski going through the inside. Yakashokas, I was going to say on the final spot on the podium, but is going to concede that final spot on the podium, getting onto the painted tarmac at the exit of Tosa, and around he goes. And will now drop down positions. Cabe, currently I believe P6 in AM, going to go past, and that is going to drop Yakashokas well outside of the AM podium. 2/3 of this race complete. Giant in P2 with a 5-second gap, and I believe it may be growing. No, it is shrinking. 5.007 the gap between Giant and Trixit. Trixit in open air, but is going to be closing up to some traffic up ahead. That is going to be the battle between the 99 of Schwartz, the 700 of Rowden, 14 of Slinky, and the 343 of Michael D. It Recruit and Wilson still with close battles. The BMW of Bad Bunny, they have actually both gone past. As they come into Ravazza, the two Ferraris just following each other through. As I think Bad Bunny and the BMW is just going to get a little bit of tow, but ultimately be dropped off of the pace. Those two in the Ferraris very, very quick. Yakashokas and Cabe side by side through Tamburello. Yakashokas eventually sticking it around the outside and pulling through for the position, getting that position back. Now Platypus looked like he was going to try the around the outside entry into Variante Alta. That is not going to work, at least not in any world that I live in. And more aggressively trying to get that position back. Platypus still in a good points scoring position. But I don't think that this is going to be the win that it almost was for Platypus. Anything can happen. But Giant currently in P2 in a good spot to score a good amount of points tonight. But Trixit playing the strategy perfectly. Now 5 seconds ahead of the battling 221 and 21 of Giant and Platypus. Ouroboros and Ormiston just continuing this battle even further, as they do have the McLaren of Profit to go past. Into Variante Villeneuve. Ormiston has just been able to hold that Audi at bay, but looked to be a late lunge into Tosa that may have gotten the second thought move from Ormiston, as it seemed that he did take a wider line than usual, maybe in a little bit of preparation for a late lunge from the Audi that never came, which ultimately is some mind games that you can play while trying to overtake. The gap between Giant and Trixit closing a little bit, was 5.1, now 4.9. Trixit running fast laps. But Platypus still running the fastest lap, and I think is in a good position to just sit behind the Porsche of Giant. No cars between Giant and Trixit, and if these two are able to work together a little bit, they should be able to close up pretty quickly to the Ferrari 296 of Trixit up ahead. they do need to have a bit of an agreement to work together if they want to get a chance at taking this lead back. But that gap has grown. 5.3 seconds now was the gap at the last timing line. Into Ravazza, starting with the number 32. Peachy leading Yakashokas, but Peachy is down on laps. Unfortunate for Peachy. They're usually in a good position in AM. A little bit of a squirm from the Porsche out of Aqua Minerale. And Trixit, what has happened to Trixit? I think it's contact with the NSX of Michael D. And that Ferrari lead that was all but brought together has completely dissolved. This battle, which was teamwork trying to close up the gap, I don't know exactly what happened there between the NSX of Michael D and the 86 of Trixit, but Trixit facing the wrong way at Variante Alta. Doesn't seem to have too much damage. Wonder if it was maybe an evasive maneuver gone wrong. So I think there may be a touch of damage on the back of that Ferrari. But now a battle for the lead between Platypus and Giant. And just when this race started to get boring, the fire is rekindled. And we now have a battle for the lead. This would be Giant's first win this season, but this would also be the win that Platypus would need to secure what I believe actually may not end up being the championship lead tonight, but would surely make it a lot closer fight. Platypus and Giant, this is going to get very nasty very quickly. Less than 10 minutes left to go in this race. Trixit has made that fatal mistake, and I'm not exactly sure how that happened. I think the race officials are definitely going to be looking at that one post-race, as there may be some penalties applied if it is an ignoring of blue flags. The Platypus now with some extra motivation. This is the battle for the lead. Giant makes a mistake wide at Variante Alta. Platypus should have the better run into Ravazza, as we did see Giant force the move on Platypus at Ravazza a few laps ago. Platypus just inching closer and closer. May just be preserving the car. That Porsche is going to have more tire wear than the Aston Martin, especially on those rear tires being a rear-engined car. Platypus, I think, maybe giving him a bump, and it is now not quite going to be close enough. Is Platypus going to send the move into Tamburello? Yes, he is, late on the brakes. Not close enough, but we have seen Platypus carry a lot of speed out through Tamburello. But with that feigned move on Giant not coming to fruition, will compromise the exit, and we'll just have to regain that time lost and try again at a different position. That is also going to bring Trixit back into this fight. The Ferrari at home is not out of it yet. Prieto in the NSX in P4. Ormiston and Ouroboros still fighting back behind. Slapshot does have the Manti liveried Porsche of Mad Psycaster, who does have some damage on the front of that car. In the previous race leading, previous pole sitting BMW of Brad down to P10. But the battle for this lead currently between Giant, Platypus, and Trixit, who is only 1.5 seconds back from Platypus. If Giant and Platypus continue to fight, but Mataj, a drive-through penalty for track limits from the lead of the race in AM is going to give that lead away. Manelli could be walking into a win in AM. Nate Dingham, all of those drivers behind are going to be promoted to position. I don't see any world where Mataj doesn't take this penalty as soon as possible. And that is heartbreaking for Mataj. Drive-through penalty for track limits. It's not the only one that we have seen tonight, but that is not the mistake that you want to make this late in the race. The 700 of Rowden around at Tamburello, spinning in front of the leaders. Good thing there wasn't any contact with those drivers in contention for the lead of this race. Into Tosa, traffic up ahead. Not that much traffic. There is traffic a little bit further ahead, but I don't think they're going to have enough time to catch it. Platypus needs to get a move on. It is Platypus and Giant with Trixit closing ever so much closer. The gap was 1.8 seconds a couple laps ago, now 1.2. Out of Aqua Minerale, Giant in the Porsche does get a poor exit, but it is up to Platypus to try and make a move with this advantage. The 969 of Mataj clears that penalty, comes out, but far behind the lead. And I think it's going to be P6 for Mataj in AM. Platypus trying it around the outside, does hang it around the outside. It was a better exit out of Variante Alta. Platypus up into the lead, but traffic up ahead hindering the line. Trixit also there behind to pick up the pieces. Should these in front have any sort of contact, any sort of drama, you can't rule anything out. It has been a race win locked away for 3 drivers tonight so far that has been completely thrown away, and something tells me that this is not going to be the only lead change that we see for the end of this race. Giant makes a big mistake through Tamburello, forces Trixit to check up. That does open up the gap to Platypus up ahead. And now 3-car fight, a 3-horse fight for the race win between Platypus, Giant, and Trixit. Platypus makes a mistake out of Variante Villeneuve. I think slightly overcooking it, getting a little bit of understeer at corner exit. 3-way battle for the lead. Platypus leading Giant, leading Trixit. Trixit all up in this battle now, less than a second behind those leaders, and they're going to go 2x2 into Piratella. Very hard to hang it around the outside, but that does force the car on the inside to take the suboptimal line. Giant tries it around the outside into Aqua Minerale, gives the inside to Platypus. They make contact door to door. Trixit is going to find a way through and have the better run than both of them. Is Trixit going to be able to find a move by the time they get to Variante Alta? Will not be close enough, but Giant now down a position. Trixit up 1 position. Platypus, we have seen very, very confident at the exit of Variante Alta. Both Trixit and Giant have made mistakes there. Trixit made a mistake there that did cost him the lead, but overall was able to get that car back out onto the racing surface and back in contention for the lead. Currently sitting P2 after that incident, which will be reviewed by race control between the 86 Ferrari 296 of Trixit and the Acura NSX of Michael D. Platypus leading Trixit now, with Trixit in slipstream range, Giant in slipstream range of the Ferrari of Trixit. Trixit on the fresher tires of this bunch, and Trixit wants a home win for Ferrari. Wants a win at Imola. This lap and 1 more, I believe, could come very close to 2 more, but we'll have to see how much time is left on the clock when they get to the end of this race. I think it is going to be this lap and 1 more, and that will be it. We will have to see how much time is left. Yes, it will be this lap and 1 more. The next lap will be the final lap of this race. Platypus just has to hold on about 25 more corners to hold on to this lead, but Trixit in that Ferrari 296 with the fresher tires. Platypus makes the mistake. Trixit in the Ferrari will try to get alongside into Variante Alta. Platypus will have the inside, will force Trixit to just hang tight behind, but that does allow Trixit to set up the better exit of Variante Alta. Does he get that better exit as they run down the hill to Variante Alta? On board looking backwards from the Aston Martin of Platypus into Ravazza. That Ferrari getting very, very close. The Porsche of Giant still in contention. Now the Ferrari of Trixit just behind is going to be within slipstream range of Platypus, and they do have some traffic up ahead. This is the final lap of the race. This is the race for the lead here in round 7 of the GoFAST Racing Series Season 3 here at Imola. Trixit trying to bring home a win for the home crowd and bring those flags up in Maranello. Platypus trying to hold on to this lead, wants to have this championship lead, currently P2 and very close to the championship leader. This finish tonight, if it is a win, if it is P2, could be enough to give Platypus the lead in the Pro Championship. Trixit and Giant in battle just behind. Manelli in the lead in AM after the mistake with that track limit penalty from Mataj. Nate in P2, Dingham in P3. Platypus still leading. Trixit does have the fresher tires behind. Trixit goes wide, fighting for every last bit of space that he can, but that is going to open the door for Giant. Side by side into Variante Alta. Giant will take back P2. Platypus just a couple more corners left to go, and no real threats ahead in terms of traffic. I think Platypus has done it, but just 2 corners left to go. The double left-handers of Rivazza. And after all of the drama, all of the heartache, all of the not leading in this race, Platypus comes out and as a massive stroke of luck takes home the checkered flag and wins tonight at Imola. Giant P2, Trixit P3, Prieto P4, Aeromich P5, Ouroboros in P6, Slapshot P7, Psycaster P8. Ormiston will come home P9, will not. Brad will come home P9, Ormiston P10, Brute P11, Harrell P12. Iceberg will bring home P13, and Manelli will bring home the win in AM here in round 7. Manelli takes the checkered flag in AM. Stolowski with a penalty that will be applied in the scoring after this race. Nate P16, P2 in AM. Dingham P3 in AM. Peach will bring home P16. K will bring home P17, P4 in AM. Recruit will bring home P5 in AM. Mataj P6, Wilson P7. Mataj with that gut-wrenching drive-through penalty for track limits at the end of the race. Rodriguez, Bad Bunny, Sierra, Batman, Georgester, all coming across the line. Christian B. Autry with Schwartz just behind. A battle for position may come down to the line as Schwartz is in the slipstream, but I don't think it's going to be quite enough to get past. They will nearly come side by side across the line, the Ferraris. Yakashokas in the not solo Lamborghini, FCP in the cheese Lamborghini. And Chandler, the final car across the line, will bring a conclusion to this very, very, very dramatic race. A round of applause for Platypus. Did lead some laps, but it seemed like all was lost when Trixit was 5 seconds ahead when he came out of the pit lane. Now that incident between Michael D. and Trixit will be investigated by race control after to see exactly what happened and apply any penalties if needed. Platypus P1 taking home the win. Giant P2, Trixit in P3, in AM, Manelli in P1, Nate P2, and Dingham P3. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Make sure that you stick around. We are going to raid a streamer. If you are not following me on Twitch, please do so. If you would like to subscribe to the YouTube channel, trying to get 100 subscribers over there. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. It has been an absolutely insane race tonight in both the Pro and AM fields. Drama all the way through. as I think we are going to hop on to the stream of, let's see, I think we're going to go over to Fuji Jin. Is racing on PC, but Fuji Jin racing in the Americas League. As we are going to go ahead and throw him the raid. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope to see you in the next round. Thank you once again for tuning in. Let's go ahead and raid Fuji.